What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Wednesday version. So, yes, it is Wednesday, the Wednesday version of the weekly Amazon Q&A show, where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, we answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So, if you are curious about retail arbitrage, perhaps you have an onerous online arbitrage issue, or you want to dive into wholesale, or maybe you just have a Keepa quandary, well, drop it in the chat and we will help any way we can. Now, for those of you who are new here, my name is Chris Grant, and to my right is my exidentesiest co-host, Chris Rasick. Chris, how's Wednesday treating you, man?
Wednesday's pretty good. I'm more curious about you. Did you get out like the heated blankets and I mean, are you doing okay down there? It's like it's pushing like 50 degrees around there.
It was 62 when I woke up. We will persevere. We will survive. But I picked up Wyatt from school today, and he didn't notice until we get home, and I'm standing around making him a snack. And he's like, "Are you wearing jeans?" I was like, "Yeah, I am. I am wearing jeans." And he's like, "Bruh, that's weird." I was like, "All right, thanks, I guess."
Like I knew that things would get weird as my girls got older. Like just things that I do I'm not even going to realize it. But for the choir concert, it was like a week or two ago, I had jeans on, and it threw those girls for a loop. Like I never would have guessed that simply wearing jeans would have the effect that it did. So yeah, I feel your pain there.
Yeah.
Hey, so a question for you, and I want to know if this is as good a thought as I think it is. I just finished The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli, and it was an audio. I read it on Audible, so I listened to it. It was narrated by Benedict Cumberbatch. Ooh. So yeah, like and it was like heavy material, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm in like a remedial course in Oxford or something right now. But he said something interesting, and it was interesting on its own, and then I kind of connected it to Amazon as well. So let me lay it out. He said that humans are the only animal that continue to fear death on a regular basis. He said, the animals, wild animals and whatnot, in forests and stuff like that, like they're aware, and if a predator's nearby, they're scared of death in the moment. But then once the risk is gone and they're clear of it, they're not preoccupied with death anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm. And that we know of.
Right. And for
some koalas hanging out in Australia, like having existential crises,
Right. They're more worried about the chlamydia flaring up. So it's but like it's a good. It was a solid point. I was like, that's and he was talking about the immortality and stuff like that. So, and I thought that was cool. Because I personally I've been obsessed with my own mortality since I was a kid, just it used to wake me up at night and just irrational fears. I kind of wired that way. So, but, now separately from avoiding predators and stuff, and the fear of death that way, that's not to say that they're not cautious. They don't keep a lookout and stuff, but they're not preoccupied with, fear of being caught and killed. So I was thinking about Amazon sellers, and I get kind of frustrated with new sellers that are overcautious. Because I see myself in them. I kind of just getting ready. You feel like ready is something you can achieve. When really it's just a feeling. You have to feel it. There's not an amount of courses or education or videos to watch before you achieve readiness. So it's basically a fear of probably failure, fear of beginning or whatnot. But I kind of in the terms of what Carlo Rovelli wrote, I think it's a good lesson to be cautious but not fear the collapse of your business, and
Mhm.
I think it's kind of a variation of things that we've said before, where it's like, what's the worst that can happen, and make sure the worst case scenario is survivable, so I think there's something there, like, you can't source scared, there's a lot of
Mhm.
questions, new sellers are rightfully so unsure of ASINs, like we do an ASIN review in the OAC Plus, and some people are more scared than others, but there's certainly some new sellers that take it too far, to where
Sure.
they're actually less productive. They're making less money because they're so cautious. So I
Mhm.
kind of connected the two, where it's like, basically they're the fear of failure, or the fear of death, as Ravelli would say, it's actually a hindrance to progress.
I like that, and I would agree with that, certainly. Um, and I think it ties back to, we talk about how do we make this an infinite game? How do we play infinite games? And if we can know that that is a possibility, by hedging your downside risk, then perhaps that fear of death, quote unquote, should should go away. Which, I mean, I get that that's tough because our
Mhm.
fear of loss is so strong in humans, just kind of naturally wired that way. Everyone is much more than we are, yeah, worried about gaining something. Um, yeah, I'm gonna need to think on that. I wonder if there's a way that we can reframe that or use that kind of built-in wiring in our favor. Um,
That would be ideal.
yeah, thank you. I've now got something to ruminate on for the next couple of days.
Sure thing.
Yeah, I may have to check out that book. By the way, and speaking of, I, I haven't read that particular book, but have you ever read um, How to Fight a Hydra by Paulo Coelho?
No, no, I've
No.
heard you recommend it. I have it written down on my list, but I've never actually read it.
Just I don't know. I love allegorical tales, and that
Mhm,
one's. I mean, that one's right up there. And I think I've said in the book chat that like Moby Dick is probably one of my favorites, and that one's an allegory as
mhm.
well. Um, yeah, but all right. All right. We're going to take your guys' questions, of course. We'll get to those earlier than usual. And we've got a little bit of news for you guys. But what is going on, everybody? Glad to see everybody, except Corey. I mean, just trying to throw Ohio. What? The Tigers couldn't make it. And so now you're just like trying to throw Ohioans under the bus. I don't know what that's all about, man. But listen, you're not actually angry at us, and so I'll let this one slide. Let's see here. Shannon, what do you normally wear? Shorts. A smattering of athleisure is what I wear.
I tell you what, it's almost like Christmas again, like it starts getting cool, and you start going through the hierarchy of sweatpants,
Hmm.
and you find those top 2 where it's just like, "Oh, hello, old friend."
Yeah, I will. So I had to. I had to go buy a couple of new pieces of clothing recently, which I hate doing, but I went and bought a couple new pieces of clothing, and I needed to replace. Well, I need to replace all of my hoodies. None of them fit. But I was like, you know what? I'm a cheapskate, and I'll say it when it comes to my own clothing. So I ordered some Amazon Essentials sweatshirts, crew neck sweatshirts. Uh, I picked up the ones, they're normally $12. And I was like, oh, hey, they've got 2 on sale for $8.08. I'll pick these ones up. And I was like, these are going to be garbage. These are going to suck. No,
Really?
Amazon brought the heat with these things.
Wow.
They're fantastic. So if anybody's looking for one, Amazon Essentials, it's one of their like performance fleece or something, but the inside's not too soft because I don't care for that. But they're awesome. All right.
It can't be more than $12, and can't be actually comfortable. You want that non-organic cotton, with the cardboard fibers weaved in that they sell at, Roses, and
You give me a hospital blanket that's been freshly starched, and I'm sleeping like a baby. All right, let's talk a little news. And of course, if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. The very first thing is Amazon has recently launched something called custom analytics. Now, this is something they've been testing. We may have even brought it up before, but I actually got my hands on it today, took a quick look at it. But it's a new tool which is going to bring together a bunch of key data in one customizable dashboard. And you can even create multiple customized dashboards based on what you want to see. One of them, one of the little knowledge panels was actually really nice. It was what you've sold the most of, and you could sort and filter it any way you wanted. I actually found very quickly 2 items to replenish almost within 5 minutes of just looking through here. So there are going to be some ways to really I think use this in a helpful way. But the pilot phase is over, so they've expanded the tool with more metrics. They've made it faster. There's new visualizations such as heat maps, funnel diagrams, column charts, and multi-axis trend charts. So instead of having to piece together a bunch of different reports, you're now going to be able to see a lot of things in one customizable area. There's over 100 metrics, so you can decide what matters most. You can build reports that fit your needs and hopefully make some decisions faster. So they've added account health data, promotion performance, product ratings, customer reviews, and a whole bunch more. You can drag and drop data points to create reports and compare results over different time periods. There's the funnel map or the heat maps that we talked about. You can build your own custom dashboards. They've got some pre-built dashboards that you can use that actually looked pretty helpful. They weren't just garbage. They were pretty nice. And it's a step in the right direction for being able to more easily understand your business and not have everything kind of fractured and all over the place. I was pleasantly surprised with this.
Yeah, when is more data ever a bad thing, right? And not only is it helpful, like you found replens right away. It kind of shows you things that you didn't realize. It's kind of along the same lines with actually knowing your numbers, and actually digging in, because sometimes what you make and what you think you make, can be 2 different things.
Yes.
So yeah, this is pretty strong. It's as many people don't want to give Amazon credit. You have to do it with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Shannon, I think one of the things that new sellers focus on is each ASIN rather than overall risk, which could be crippling. Reality is some ASINs will do really well and some will not. I agree with this. I do think that people, even more so than focus on each ASIN, I actually think a lot of people over index what they expect to make from each sale rather than what they may make over a month on a particular product, which I think is perhaps a more important metric. So,
yeah, it's That's a good point. You know, people don't realize that, you know, I mean, we tend to, like, when we're sourcing, we tend to plug the numbers into whatever calculator we use, and that's the profit, and we put it on our spreadsheet, and you know, and if you calculate total buy versus expected profit, it's always that number at 100%,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you know, in reality, you know, plenty of the time, you know, you're going to have to cut the price a little bit, or you know, the buy box price is going to erode, you know, as more sellers jump on it and whatnot. And but yeah, that's Shannon, that's zooming out is so important, you know, because whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, the Pareto principle will be in play, you know. And that's kind of my point with you know, the new sellers getting overcautious, you know, just kind of overthinking things. It's like, just get some units on their way, you know. Like I say it on the Monday Night Sourcing show a lot, like it's a positive crooked number, you know, and I try not to overthink it, and we just put it on the board and we move on, you know. Because you can overanalyze it, you know, and meanwhile, people are selling units upon units, and taking that ROI that you're not sure is a big enough number, and they're flipping that into more profitable inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's zooming out is so important, you know, because we can get lost in the details.
Yeah.
And before we move off this, Shannon, I will let you know, I had a fall mowing session that is absolutely gorgeous. Like, just one of those, it starts getting cooler. You know, we got rain most of about 2 weeks. So the grass woke back up, and it's that real dark green. Oh man. And I mowed it the other day myself, took my own time. And boy, was it worth it. Beautiful thing.
Yeah. Michael, I'm trying to decide when to tackle the ASIN ungating challenge. Have you noticed any difference in getting ungated on ASINs that require 10 units versus those that require 2 to 300 units? Um, the ones without dollar signs tend to be easier. I can say that. Um, if you are going up against brands that have dollar signs in front of them, it seems to be about the same difficulty, whether it's 10 units or 50 units or 400 units. It just seems to take 15, 20, 25, 35 submissions with all of the correct information before someone on the other end is like, okay, I guess you want this bad enough. I haven't really noticed a difference there, but there is a lot that you can get auto ungated in. I would work on that rather than spending money that would be better served spending on inventory.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the probably the biggest difference is going to be a change in the AI that Amazon uses. You know, which
Hmm.
I still, my best guess would be first of the year before that happens.
Yeah. Polly, in Keepa, when I track shorts, variation size medium in black, do I also need to track the variation medium in tan, or does Keepa track all variations of that listing at the price I'm looking for? No, you have to track each variation separately. And bear with me just a moment here while I pull up a pair of shorts on Amazon. Let's do Under Armour. Actually, we'll pull up the Under Armour shorts that I bought not too long ago. Because I think that they added something recently, but I can't quite remember. So, track. Oh, Keepa did just add something that I have not seen since the last time I tracked something. You can now track items for when they go out of stock and when they come back in stock. That's beautiful. Um, I do not see a way to track all variations at once. So you're going to have to track multiple or you're going to have to set up tracking for multiple variations on your own. So I'm just going to check one more thing here. Okay. So here's the other thing you can do. This is what I remembered. In the variations tab in Keepa, here, I'll tell you what. This might make it a little bit easier. Let me do this. It's not going to be real great looking because there's a lot on the screen here. But if you go into Keepa and you go to the variations tab, there is a little thing here called enable and disable tracking mode right here. Okay. If you enable tracking mode, I can then go in and I could select all of the ones that I want to track. And you'll be able to track those there. Now I will need to figure out what that will track, or if you go into the track product section, uh, track selected. Let's do that. Track select. Okay. So you select those in the variations, you hit track selected, and then you come over here and you start choosing what you want. Do you want it 5% or less on the buy box price, etc.? And you're off to the races there. All right, JP. To update sourcing costs, I submitted store receipts from TJ Maxx, but they denied my petition. Proof of value, document issue, buyer or supplier names are missing, identical, or buyer name doesn't match. I would not spend the time trying to get those sourcing costs updated inside of Amazon. That's going to be a waste of your time. I would only fight with them when you actually need to get a reimbursement from them and you need to, make it more money. Other than that, I wouldn't be sending them into Amazon. But if they give you this same issue when you're fighting for a reimbursement, I would I would start I would take those receipts and I would scan them in, and then I would highlight the items that they need to see. Like the supplier name, it's there. It's right at the top of the receipt. Buyer name doesn't match. I mean, maybe it doesn't show up on the receipt very well, but like there's some sort of identification there, maybe your credit card information or something like that. I'm also not against adding some of the information either handwritten or in a way that Amazon surely knows that I have annotated rather than altered the information. I'm happy to add my information. I'm happy to add Target's, or TJ Maxx's information typed out. And I usually do it in red with like a background so that it's very easy to realize that it's been annotated. But again, we are in a time when Amazon is trying to implement AI. So that's probably what you're fighting with. And I would just keep submitting until it gets a person. All right. We'll go to another piece of news, and if you guys have more questions, we'll be happy to answer those. Amazon has linked up with the United States Postal Service for doorstep returns. Matter of fact, Sarah in OAC shared this today or showed it off today. But Amazon has begun offering doorstep pickup from the United States Postal Service for select customer returns. So, not all of them. Sometimes there is a fee charged, and sometimes they're free. Just depends on how you're returning it, but you don't have to go anywhere. They actually launched this over the summertime, but now it seems like they're expanding it much more. And now Other things are also still there. There's still UPS available. You can still drop it off, et cetera. And Amazon hasn't said how much they're extending this coverage. But apparently the Postal Service like wrote a report about them trying to gather more of the reverse logistics business because they want to kind of fill in the gap in their budget. So I'm curious what happens here. Like, I don't know many postal service workers that are like super happy about doing their job. Whereas my UPS guys have always been like, "Hey, what's going on? Let's chat and let's be friends." Um, so I'm curious what postal workers think about this one, but two, with UPS already sort of in a turnaround mode, is USPS going to come in and eat a big part of their lunch?
Yeah, it makes sense for the post office, right? Because they're already at the door, so if they can just add a minor step, um, but a revenue stream, without taking any extra steps, essentially, extra footsteps at least, that's a win for them. Um, I'm curious the effect on returns overall, you know,
Hmm.
um, because you specifically with Amazon, because it also came up today in the OAC Plus chat is I think it was Sarah as well. Um, uh, some of us are starting to get our first taste of the partial refund. Um,
Yes.
so it's interesting. Like I don't know, it kind of feels. I haven't really thought a whole lot about it, but it feels pretty creative. Um, that Amazon's kind of balancing between uh, making a little bit more money from the returns, like adding a little bit of friction, um, while appearing to make the process easier for the customer at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it returns are it's that's a really difficult thing, especially the way Amazon, as easy as they made it for customers, because that's their MO, so to walk that back once it becomes a huge financial drain across, the entire e-com industry. Yeah, it's a pretty tough task, but I think this is pretty creative. I like it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I I was actually thinking about that. Yeah, what that means for sellers doing some partial refunds. I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing. Like if let's say for example that I want to sell a lot of things that are $9.99, and that's where I've chosen my business to be. How many of those items do I really want to take back? If my let's say my return rate is 4%, um, how do I want to get a lot of those back? Or maybe I'm going to have to pay the return admin fee. And then, maybe half of it's going to get sent back to me and I'm going to pay another $2 to have Amazon send it back to me or to destroy it. In a
Mhm.
lot of those cases, I think that a partial refund to the customer might make more sense.
Yeah, you cut your losses, and then you have the intangibles of not having to handle it yourself.
Hmm.
In order to get whatever you can. Yeah, I could see plenty of scenarios where that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's answer. I think we got another question or two here. Corey, this one I can't answer for you, but are there any sellers in Colorado in here? Of all the places that are bastions of Amazon sellers, Colorado doesn't seem to be one of them. I personally know of like four or five in Colorado. Um, but I mean, yeah, Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, even Ohio. It's almost like you throw a rock and you hit an Amazon seller.
What's funny is my wife spent a good portion of her childhood in a very very small town, um, like ridiculously small, and I was going through which by the way, anybody who has Storefront Stalker Pro that doesn't quite have their storefronts tweaked, I spent at least about an hour or two with the seller lookup feature on Keepa. And basically I took a storefront that I liked, and basically I found it through a lead that I liked, and it's like, okay, so I look at everybody that's on the listing, and I was like, because basically it's like, I like your style, because I like the lead, I like the ASIN too, so by connection, I kind of like their sourcing methods, at least a portion of them. So I'd open up those sellers, and then I'd use the seller lookup, and I'd look at the overlap, and then that kind of opened up a whole bunch of rabbit trails and new storefronts that were similar. Because most of the time when you're looking at storefronts, they have a specific brand that they specialize in, or a specific category at the very least. So it's a good way to branch out, and I found a bunch of really good possibilities. But anyway, so I found a seller. I scrolled down, I looked at the address, and it was this small town that my wife spent some of her childhood in.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I was like, hey, I said, everybody pretty much knows everybody, right, in that town? And she goes, yeah, pretty much. I said, do you know so-and-so? She goes, yeah. I said, and it was like initial, it was like a letter with an ampersand and then another letter, like C&C LLC. And I said, so I figured that was probably like husband and wife. I said, is she married to a guy whose first name begins with the letter C? And she goes, yeah. And then we reached the point where she's like, what the hell are you doing? And so she asked me, and she goes, how do you know these people? I said, well, I don't. I said, but I am looking at her Amazon store right now. She's like, oh, what does she sell? So lots of beauty. She said, well, yeah, that tracks.
That's funny. Yeah, it really is a small world. You're absolutely right. Corey, what's your number one overall goal this Q4? Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. It's not real well defined. I'm trying to hit a stretch goal. And I've lost probably the one supplier that I used to be able to get the largest orders from. They quantities, quantities were maxed out, but you could just put order after order after order. So what happens when you lose something like that, it's pretty tough when you have to, it would take like 4 or 5 regular stores, or stores that have typical order quantity and limits and whatnot, to replace one of them, and then to find consistent stuff. So I'm actually struggling with that more than I realized I would. Didn't think it was a big deal at first, but when you lose a place that you can get some serious quantities, that could be some challenges. So I'm trying to replace that while also hitting my incremental sales increases, my unit counts. It's like, okay, I did this, so I'm going to add, whatever, like 10% or something. So now I need to hit those units. So, but it's like, so I'm just inching up on the units I want to buy, but then I had a big drop in what I can obtain from what I'm used to sourcing. So there's a big gap, and my goal in this Q4, because there's so many sales and stuff like that, is to shorten that gap and replace that supplier, and basically get my sourcing from a unit perspective back on track, and then get back on the growth train. So.
Yeah, that one's even more well defined than mine. Mine is just let's see the numbers go up and to the right compared to last year. I just would love to see across everything that we do. I'd love to see like a 5 to 10% lift. I'm not expecting anything insanely crazy this year. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Lewis. Hey, Chris, on the seller account registration page, I have an LLC, but there's a section for letter of authorization. What do you do here? I don't know. I haven't seen that, so I'm not sure. But if I'll tell you what, if you want to send me a screenshot of it, I'd be happy to take a look. If it's not, if you don't have to click on it, or if you don't have to recognize it, I would just try to move past it. So a lot of times, and I'm kind of guessing here because I haven't been on the seller registration page in over a decade. So my guess is it's something you can click and upload if you have it, or pass over it is my guess. And if you can just pass over it, that's what I would do. Are there any credit card strategies that are pretty simple to do in order to increase capital? Um, I think there's a couple. Not necessarily to increase capital, but to be smarter about it. So number one, if you're looking to get any increases in credit limits, you should do that while your usage is low. So if you've got any cards with low usage on them right now and you've had them for over 6 months, I would be calling and seeing if, hey, could I get a credit line increase? So that's one thing you could do. Second would be opening up another credit card. There are a few cards right now that have some enhanced bonuses. I think the Chase Inc. card is still doing the $900 or 90,000 points. So you've got that. And then I think there's one other one. I think one of the American Express maybe has an enhanced sign up as well. So that would be another option, getting another card. And then you can also make sure that you're staggering your dates. What I mean by that is stagger the dates that you use the cards, and stagger the dates that you can, or that you're uh the closing dates on the cards. Stagger those. We've got a chat GPT prompt that'll help you do that. I can't remember exactly what the URL is for that, but it's on my website. You can download it for free and have ChatGPT help you just by filling out the information. That would be an easy thing to do. Now, one of the other things that I could suggest, and this is not necessarily a credit card thing, but I've been looking into this more and more lately, is working with like a local bank or a local credit union. There are a lot of these smaller regional banks that will work with businesses a lot more openly, and not require as much paperwork and stuff, and may even give things like business lines of credits to new accounts with just revenue information rather than full loan docs. So if you can find one of those places as well, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a business line of credit either. And you could pay down a credit card with it, and then pay onto the business line of credit and cycle through that thing, and that's it. So
Yeah, my business line of credit that I got through the SBA, um, it's about half of what the credit card interest rate is. So I pretty much run with the bulk of whatever balances that I carry. That gets moved over to, if I don't have a 0% interest, or a balance transfer offer or something like that, that gets moved over onto the business line of credit, which instantly cuts the interest that I do pay in half. Um, Also, if you're in the Chase uh, uh, ecosphere, you can transfer balances between cards. Um, even if it's obviously, it's the easiest thing to do if you open up a new card. You have your available balance, hopefully with a 0% interest period of time. Most of them do have 12 months 0%. If you have any available balances on existing cards, you can actually move that over and increase the credit line, increase the amount of capital that you have at 0% for 12 months, which can be a huge advantage. And even if it's not a new card, you can actually take whatever available balances and you could consolidate it within whatever Chase cards that you do have. It may get you a nice chunk of change even if you don't open a new card. What else was I going to say? Make sure whatever cards that you do have, make sure you're paying attention to the emails that they send out. They are very easy to ignore because there are usually so many of them. Like I don't like how many times is Chase going to invite me to refer friends? Like you think I'm sandbagging my friends? Like, hey, I got a good credit card, but I'm not going to tell you where to apply until I get a sweet referral deal. Like shut up. You could be missing out. It's like, if I have any friends that need a credit card, I've told them. It's such a weird marketing thing. But I bring up paying attention to the emails because, and this may be, even if you don't get an email, a phone call may be worth it. Call and see or watch for balance transfer offers. Because I was getting ready to close my US Bank card once I paid it off because I opened it and they gave me a stupid low limit, which pissed me off. And then I got my sign-up bonus, got all these points or whatever, and it turns out that their redemption rates are also crap. That was strike 2. And I was like, this card is worthless to me. However, they sent me a letter. They increased my credit limit and gave me a balance transfer offer of 0% for 13 billing cycles. So a little over a year. So I actually took advantage of that. And I actually completely cleared a card that I just racked up and I was pushing the limits on that card. So I actually cleared that out like immediately. Most of it on 0%. And then the couple thousand that was left over, I tossed that on the business line of credit. So that actually opened up a new card. But even if you don't get an email, you could call them and talk to them and say, hey, if I kind of want to transfer some balances, but I don't quite have enough credit right now, so that may be a temptation that they're willing to do, knowing that they'll get the balance transfer fee and then they'll get a chunk of debt put on their card, which could potentially make interest if you don't pay it off in their eyes, so you could try it that way too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Let's see here. Oh, hey, Polly, great job. Usually buy 2 to 3 of any item. Yesterday I bought 10. That's fantastic. Fantastic. Hey guys, is Amazon your forever hustle or is it your leverage into something else? I'm never going to paint myself into a corner and say that, this is absolutely something I'm going to do until the day I take my last breath. Because I think that would be silly. But I would imagine that in some way, Amazon is part of my business for for as long as I can see. In my opinion, being in the retail business, being in the physical goods business is actually a bit of a hedge against inflation. Um, we sell things that if the price goes up, well, we can raise the price and usually keep some margin going. And I mean, if there's anything that never goes away, it's death, taxes, and inflation. So why not hedge against that just a little bit? Now, are there other things that I do, and are there other things that I'm interested in? Oh yeah, I've got business ADD like nobody's business. So I will probably leverage into even more things than I already do now in the future.
Yeah, I don't speak in terms of forever, necessarily, just because looking back, so many things that I thought were long term just didn't work out. I I laugh at myself because there was at one point in time, I got in a groove at, of all things, a used car lot. And I remember having thoughts of like, I could do this for a good period of time. Like there was actually some contentment, and looking at it now, it's like, holy crap, you're an idiot. Which is just something I do, and every few years or something, I tend to look back the last few years and go, man, you're kind of stupid. But that's growth. So if I didn't think I was stupid, then there's something wrong. That's more alarming. However, this is such a simple business. It's not easy, but it is simple. So the way I see it is, I'm not afraid of putting in long hours. I will sit at this desk all day, essentially, because I also enjoy it. This isn't soul sucking work, like my 9 to 5 was. But so I'm not afraid to put in the time now and spend long days while I'm scaling and seeing the results, and things are moving in the direction that I want it to go. I like that. I'm not afraid of it because I know that I could train somebody to do most of what I'm doing. Okay. So if I get to the point, so basically I see it kind of hours ramping up, revenue ramping up, and then revenue staying, and then hours coming down. And whatever that total revenue, why would I give it up? I mean, as long as it remains viable, which there's no reason, despite what the PL supremacist will tell you, there's no reason to think that arbitrage and third party selling on Amazon is going to go anywhere. So I can do it in some capacity. And if I can free up time and even start to outsource it, even if my margin goes down because I've now taken on staff to take some of my duties, that's fine. So there's no end in sight for me. However, it was never the idea to only do this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I remember when I thought I was going to sell insurance the rest of my life, and have all these designations, et cetera, and so on. That Chris was an idiot. Now, Chris, are you telling me that arbitrage is not the Titanic?
Oh, you want to go there? You want to go there?
No, I don't.
We can go there. We can go there.
To.
I got nothing going on for the next hour, so we can discuss the elements of the Titanic and arbitrage.
Yeah, that was all right. Eric, seller support says active and buyable. Eric, I'm not sure if I'm getting all of your question here. But I'm going to try to make sense of this. Seller support says active and buyable, but if we change the delivery to another zip code, it is available. Oklahoma, California, etc., but not available in Michigan. I mean, that could be for a couple of reasons, I would imagine. Perhaps it's something that's not allowed to be sold in Michigan. If it wasn't allowed to be sold in Michigan, I would highly doubt that it would be allowed to be sold in California, but maybe there's some weird thing in Michigan. Actually, that would make a lot of sense. So I don't know. But if there's more to that, let me know. We can circle back to it.
Yeah, maybe it's if it can't be sold in Michigan, but it can be sold in California. I have to assume it's coloring books, and maybe spelling books, basic like kindergarten curriculum for adults.
Sports ethics books.
Yeah. How to win and when to abandon your appeal for cheating. Yeah, it's got to be something along those lines.
Yeah, must be. All right, last piece of news, and then we can answer.
Today, just today, Corey, we got some jokes.
starting today, Amazon is laying people off. And Amazon has said like 14, 15,000. There are some reports that it's going to be up to 30,000. And of course, people are going back to, well, last year Amazon said 9,000, it turned into 18,000. And that's why they're kind of doubling this number. But layoffs started happening this morning via text message. Not a text I'd want to wake up to at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is some of the screenshots I've seen. But Amazon has said that they're looking to reduce expenses and rectify excessive increases in staffing levels that it made during COVID-19 pandemic by cutting as many as 30,000 corporate employees, according to Reuters. Um, and they were very specific that these are going to be corporate employees. A lot of them are going to be, first of all, it's about 10% of their corporate workforce. They said it would be a lot of HR, a lot of technology, devices and services, and some operations. And this is all happening while Amazon is hiring 250,000 seasonal workers as well. So I don't think it's a, oh, we're in trouble kind of thing. It really does seem like this is right sizing. And I would imagine that AI, they don't want to say it, but I would imagine that AI has a little something to do with this as well. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, here goes shipping times. No, that's not going to happen. Oh, well, here goes seller support. No, they've already been implementing AI there, and that's all outsourced to other countries. Like, I don't think there's anything here that we're really going to notice very much.
Yeah, I mean the key is corporate employees. And if you've worked anywhere with cubicles, that isn't like direct customer service. That's just bloated wages. I mean, you think about, everyone has batch of, if you ever worked in an office, everyone has stories of several useless people, that you're not really sure why they're still employed. This is interesting though, because I almost wish they had said AI, just so we could get to the point where people are whining about AI taking jobs, but then by association, they would have to be sympathetic to people losing their job at a company that apparently they want to hate on. So it'd be like, what, like, if Amazon is such a corporate monster, and just full of greedy people, why would you be concerned with corporate layoffs?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Honestly, yeah, they're going to be, I don't know. We've got an interesting future. I made a joke last night because someone went out and beat Tesla to the punch on having a robot ready to be delivered to your home. It's called, I think it's called 1X Tech. They're calling it the Neo Bot. And it's a humanoid robot that's supposed to be able to do household chores. And I just made a joke, and I was like, oh, and it's $500 a month. You can either pay 20 grand or $500 a month, and sort of lease it. And I was like, oh, here's exactly what's going to be on every Amazon seller's Christmas list, because now you've got a $500 a month prep employee. And it was completely a joke. I do not expect a humanoid robot to be able to actually pack a box in our house yet. Do I think that comes? Yeah, absolutely. But I already know one Amazon seller who has his pre-ordered. And I
Really?
was like, I was just kidding. Yep, already put the pre-order in.
Wow.
So yeah, it'll be fascinating. What kind of repercussion? Because I don't really see there being much of an issue with the sale of physical goods going away. mean, Steve French actually said it best the other day. Until goods can be teleported, there are always going to be inefficiencies in the marketplace. But if I could offload prep to robots, would I bring prep back into my home? It's possible. It's very possible.
Sure.
So yeah, we've got an interesting decade coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Or God, would you bring prep back in house, or would you increase capacity to keep the prep center and bring the robot in, and then have the robot handle? You could increase your RA factor. You could get buyers and whatnot, which we had an interesting conversation about RA strategy just last night.
Mm-hmm.
And then keep the OA going. You could look at it a couple different ways. It could be revenue growth, or it could be savings on existing operations.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the future is bright either way. And I know Chris and I are always accused of being eternally optimistic, but I think things are going to be pretty cool in the future. And yes, next upcoming Terminator movie, Connor will go back in the past to stop the AI creation. Yeah, and that's why you need to hedge your bets and be nice to the AI, just in case we do become batteries or pets or whatever it is. Let's see here.
I was just watching. Sometimes it's mini philosophy, and sometimes it's just Johnny Thompson. And he actually he had a good one that I saw today, called the Gollum effect.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that?
I have, but I did not. I did not put it to memory. And now by Gollum, we're talking Golom, not the character from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, not Lord of the Rings, but it's GOLEM.
Yeah, Golem, which is
Yeah.
a Jewish figure, correct? Like a
Correct.
mystical figure. Yeah.
Correct. So he said the Gollum effect is essentially where it's essentially self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's if you have a negative perception of something going in, the way you view it and the way you treat it will essentially make sure it reaches the level of expected disappointment. So basically, and the one way I was reading was basically like if you're a manager and you bring somebody on, a new hire, and you're like, I don't think that person is going to, I don't think they're going to get it. I don't think you're going to be a very good employee. You will actually, whether you know it or not, your attention and your training and your focus and stuff, you'll actually do less for that new hire until your expectation is met, and that person doesn't turn out to be a good hire. The other example I saw was teachers. If you have a student and you're like, this person is going to struggle all year, you actually will put less effort teaching that student than the average of the class as a whole, thus fulfilling the prophecy that you set out. And it does have an opposite effect. I think it was the Pygmalion effect, which is the opposite. If you have a positive effect, it's actually things will actually go into place to reach that positive outcome that you expected. And I couldn't help but think about how many trolls, and all the people that just arbitrage is dead, and the people in FBA today that just never miss an opportunity to say something shitty about Amazon, and how everything's going to crap. And it's like, that's the Gollum effect. Like, if you expect Amazon to suck, Amazon's going to suck,
Yep.
So it's maybe the fact that we try to look at things neutral at worst, if not in a positive light, and or at least understand the why something's changing. Johnny Thompson says, we could actually be making, we could have a better experience with Amazon because we have the attitude that we do. Like the people out there may be right. It may suck for you, but it may be awesome for us because we think it's awesome.
Yeah. A couple of things. I'm going to be so one, that idea of the Gollum effect reminds me very much of that Daniel Pink thread that you shared, which I think Daniel Pink may be the next author I dive deep into after I'm finished with this current book on procrastination. But yeah, that was fantastic. I actually had a long conversation with my son about that thread, and being positive and things like that, how it actually, being negative actually shrinks your prefrontal cortex and all those things. Two, I want to be a little open, but you want to know where I first learned what a golem was?
Yes, I do.
I want to be well read and stuff like that. But I first learned what a golem was by watching the show Supernatural. Uh, uh, but
That's
and
all right.
also where else can you get discussion about Amazon and business and all of that, and then also deep dive into authors and what golems are and golem effect and all that. We're one of one, man. All right, Michael, my account health is stuck on 208 and I have no idea if that's good, bad, low, high, etc. Well, 200 is the baseline. 200 is all right. You're doing fine. So if you've got no compliance issues, if your account is clean, that's good. You're in the green. Now that number goes up based on the number of sales that you have. So I believe it's 4 points for every 200 sales. So you'll see a 4-point increase for every 200 sales. So you sell more stuff and that number goes up. It'll come back down if you get some issue or something like that. And then you fix it and it goes right back up.
And I think there is a minimum threshold too, because you can actually, if you're not selling, even without issues, even without account health violations, if you're not an active seller, it will sink back down to 200. But I'm not sure what those numbers are. But I know if dormant account will go back to 200 eventually, regardless of where you started.
Yep. And Luke says in the last 6 months is what it counts. Deal Hunter, I feel like RA and OA is much more profitable than wholesale. I know it's more of a headache and requires more time. I don't know if it necessarily requires more time. I mean, sure, if you're doing RA yourself, yeah, like you got to be in the trenches every day, out there sourcing and stuff like that. But with, I mean, everything has its hard. You just end up having to pick your hard. With wholesale, you're typically trying to buy a lot deeper, and not necessarily as wide of a catalog, but you've also got a sales job. You got to shake hands and talk to, other salespeople and get them to open up accounts and foster those relationships and all that stuff. With RA, like an OA, if you just want to be a keyboard jockey, you could do that. With RA, you don't necessarily have to go and talk to managers, but it would certainly be helpful. So like they all, and the other thing is all of these things can also be systematized and given off to employees. Some of the biggest RA sellers we know have shoppers. They're not actually out shopping themselves any longer. even though they're 99% or more retail arbitrage. They're focusing on working on the business. So
Yeah, this is there's a bit of this business that I think as arbitragers, and I think there's a lot of things to blame. There's a lot of things in play here. I think it's a seed was planted by private label and wholesale course sellers, because those are the people that jump on any negative thing that happens to Amazon sellers. Somebody will be on Twitter saying arbitrage is dead, and it's just a veiled marketing. It's a false dichotomy that it's zero sum marketing. It's like arbitrage is dead. What you do now is dead. If you're smart, you'll buy my course and learn how to do wholesale, right? So arbitrage needs to be a sinking ship like the Titanic, in order to make their course look more appealing. Okay. And that's how you know it's not true. The only people saying arbitrage is dead are selling wholesale or private label courses. Prove me wrong. No one has yet. Okay, so there's that perspective, right? So then there's all the marketing stuff of wholesale, and wholesale shares a romanticized marketing tactic with people that sell replens courses, in the fact that they try to romanticize not having to search for new ASINs quite as much, and they make it sound like it's this wonderful thing. It's just you floating on a cloud because you've got all the ASINs that you'll ever need, and it's just a matter of staying in stock. Number one, every ASIN, no matter how you find it, no matter how you source it, whether it's private label, wholesale, arbitrage, every ASIN has a finite lifespan. Okay, it will only be profitable for a certain amount of time, right? And until somebody's going to jump on, a competitor's going to make a better garlic press than you have white labeled, or somebody else is going to get an account, or the exclusive wholesale account that you have with this certain product, a competitor is going to jump on and that's going to get popular and your sales are going to sink. Or it's going to, the arbitrage item that you found is going to hit a lead list, or, it's going to go on sale somewhere while you're already in stock, and those people are going to have a lower buy cost than you. So you're going to think it's starting to tank, when in reality, you don't realize that these people got it cheaper, right? So every ASIN has a finite lifespan. So there's never a point where you can stop searching for new ASINs, okay? There's always going to be some degree of hunting, of treasure hunting, for new ASINs, okay? whether you're doing replens or wholesale or whatever it is. So you're not going from, it's not a 100% drop in effort. Okay. Is my point. Number two, what you don't have to do as far as hunting new ASINs, now you have to become skilled at forecasting. Okay. Because if you're going to have a product that you can get wholesale, you better stay in stock. Right. And if you think forecasting and monitoring stock level, monitoring sales, dealing with storage limits, how much should you send in? How much is going to cover the next 30 days? You have to get that right to remain profitable. Right. So that takes effort, so it gets romanticized like it's so much less work, like imagine just all you got to do is just put in a new PO and you're making all this money. It's not like that, right? So there's far more time involved than, it's probably closer to the same amount. I think your time just goes to a different duty when you change models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything has its hard. You just gotta pick what your hard is. And also, I do tend to think that wholesale margins, they are a little bit lower. Not that that's a bad thing. I've heard people say, "Oh, well, 6% margins." Retail, that's pretty daggone good. It's better than Target. It's better than Walmart. At scale, that's not bad. So Yeah, you can do a little better than that. I think. I think you can do a little better than that on retail or RA and OA. But anyway, Michael, my prior question: do you think higher seller central account rating affects gating? I don't have enough data to say whether or not that's the case. My gut says no, because I know people who have 1,000 who still have trouble getting getting ungated with brand direct invoices.
Mhm.
Sometimes Walmart invoices are actually easier to get ungated with than a invoice directly from the brand. So yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there is a negative correlation.
I would
where
imagine.
where if you get dinged, because I've had violations on my account health, and I've lost approval to sell certain brands. Like I used to be able to sell Neutrogena, um, and I got an account health violation. I beat it, cleared it, never got Neutrogena back. So I think unfortunately, it's a one-way street, and just the negatives kind of drop you down on the trust meter that they have going on the back end.
Mm-hmm. Question about section 3: how far do they go back? They are typically asking for invoices and receipts for the past year on whatever ASINs they may ask about.
Mhm. Yeah, most of the time. Somebody did have something went back 2 or 3 years, but that's the exception, not
Yeah.
the general rule.
You know what, Corey? You're absolutely right here. The unknown, the treasure hunting aspect of RA is fun. And
Mhm.
yeah, you can have days where you strike out. Absolutely. Although my favorite are the days where you absolutely hit it big, but you know that you're in the wake of another RA seller who either is overthinking things, um, or maybe their requirements are too high, and just picking up all the stuff that like you see the tags peeled back and curled over, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take this even though they didn't.
Or the one on the shelf that has the UPC sticking out,
Hmm.
just the one unit. It's like, nah, someone's been here.
What is your average ROI per ASIN? I'd have to go look. I would imagine though that it probably shakes out to right around 15% overall. Um, so for every dollar I put in, I'm getting a buck 50 out. That's probably a fair thing to say. Now, is that where we try to source? No. Are there some things that have a 50% or a 60% ROI? Yeah. Are there some things that have a 10% ROI? Absolutely. Are there some things that have a negative ROI? Yeah. But you are talking blended, on average. I would say on average, it's 15, 20% ROI. Amazon, thank you for doing the show. Always look forward to this. Absolutely. Tony, can you build business or personal credit with some of these pay later options? Um, there was an article I saw not too long ago that said that they are working on building those things into your FICO scores, but they haven't figured out how to do it yet. So I don't believe that's an option quite yet. However, these companies like Affirm, they do have internal metrics that they keep track of to decide whether or not someone's a good risk or not, I believe, if I remember that article correctly. Mad Moo Dog, my account health has been sitting at 200. At what point does it increase? 4 points for every 200 sales. Very super cool guy. Is it better to buy as offers are falling or once it hits the bottom, assuming it historically rebounded to ideal price? Um, well, see, so here's the thing, you know, you can't know what the new bottom is. Um, that's like it's like saying, you know what, I'm going to get into day trading and I'm only selling at the top. That's impossible. Um, so personally, would I feel okay buying some units if I'm seeing the number of sellers go down and the price starting to recover? Yeah, probably. But I'm also going to be hedging my downside risk because what happens if we're sort of in a wave pattern where okay, that particular item, the number of sellers is going down right now, but that's because the really good lead list it was on showed up 45 days ago, and the lead list that is so found it right before all those first lead list buyers sent theirs in. So are we going to get a second wave of sellers? Okay. So would I still buy some units? Yeah, if I see the price recovering a bit, but I'm also going to make sure, hey, the lowest price over the past 6 months or a year is $22. Am I break even there? And if so, then maybe I'm going to buy a few units and try to move some before maybe a second wave of sellers comes through. But no way to know when the bottom actually hits.
And you know what? I would argue, very super cool guy, that for the most part, offers, my buy decision doesn't rely on offer count, and the direction. The only thing that offer count and the trend, that the offer count, the direction that the trend's going, basically that only affects the quantity that I'm going to buy. It's not involved in the buy decision. My buy decisions are based on the profit and ROI and those factors. Like I don't, there may be a situation where an increasing seller count, even though it hits profit and ROI numbers that I like, that may talk me out of a buy. But in large part, seller count isn't one of the triggers for a buy decision.
Mhm.
The money that I'm going to make is that decision. I may adjust quantity at best, vast majority of the time.
Deal Hunter, is it safer to stick the FNSKU label on the product box rather than the poly bag, just in case the customer returns the product without the bag to Amazon? No, you can stick it on the poly bag. That's not a big deal. I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, the return would be tied to the order number, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah. Bob G. All right. So if I keep doing OA and I get a section 3, what do I do? A little afraid of this happening and thinking if I should switch to wholesale model. So I see that someone's marketing has gotten to you. Because you can't, you can always beat a section 3 with wholesale. But we have seen literally hundreds of people who have watched the podcast that we did about section 3 use it and successfully come through with retail arbitrage receipts, with online arbitrage receipts, all of that stuff. I would actually rather fight a section 3 with Walmart receipts than I would just about any wholesale invoice that's out there, or Target receipts for that matter, or Kohl's, because they're all known entities. Like everyone knows who those retailers are. So one, the fear of section 3s is currently over indexed. They are fairly easy to get through as long as you are not committing some sort of fraud. And secondly, we've pretty much solved it for everybody. Like we've got, we've had 5 or 6 people go through section 3s in OAC Plus, and we don't have anybody outstanding that is still unable to ship into Amazon. Not a single one. And it's all done via the information we gave in our Section 3 podcast.
Yeah, I mean, Section 3s are going to be closer to submitting your annual insurance and, updating your Inform Act information. It's alarming when you get it, but everybody's going to get it. I mean, it's almost more of the registration process now for new sellers. So, yeah, and to think that moving to wholesale, like the money involved in wholesale, like, arbitrage, you can go and spend a few $100 on a bunch of different ASINs, do retail arbitrage, list at FBM, and get your profit in a matter of days. But to be that scared of a Section 3 to move to wholesale, to where you need thousands of dollars most of the time, and you can't diversify your product listings, nearly as much. I mean, that doesn't sound like a safer move, And there are plenty of stories of wholesalers having just as much issue as people trying to get a Ross receipt or a TJ Maxx receipt cleared via Section 3.
Yeah. And we're not dogging wholesale here. Like, I'm not against any model on Amazon. Okay. Like, they all work. Private label, does it work? Absolutely. You can make a ton of money at it. Does wholesale work? Yes. You can absolutely crush it. Matter of fact, the largest Amazon seller in the world does wholesale. And they've gone public, and I believe their market cap is $2 or $3 billion, doing $1 billion a year in gross revenue on the Amazon platform alone. So does retail arbitrage and online arbitrage work? Yeah, absolutely. But the marketing out there would make you think, oh, well, with wholesale, like, you don't have to worry about IP complaints. That's not true. IP complaints still happen. You don't have to worry about a brand telling you can't sell their product. Nope, that happens. You're never going to get sued from a brand. No, that absolutely happens. It's very, very rare on any of the models, but it happens. So yeah. Jay Tyndall, does your list of prep centers include options for sellers with less than 1 year experience? Yes, but they're not highlighted because I did not go and vet every single of the few hundred prep centers that are out there. That was just hey, let's get all of the information that is fractured across the internet into one place, kind of thing. There's unfortunately no way for me to figure out who will do what. So, Mad Moo Dog, I'm almost at 300 sales. Should I reach out to them, or does it take time to update? It updates every Monday. Amazon Con 1, off your comment that offer count does not affect if you source a product. What filters do you like to use when using KPF if not using offer count? Personally, I like it depends on what I'm looking for, because sometimes I like to use sales rank and buy box price, both current and average buy box prices, because I like real boring stuff that kind of stays flat. I would still use the number of offers. I just want 3 or more offers on average over the past 90 days. And if I'm going real wide, that's it. Sometimes, though, I won't even use BSR. I'll actually say, hey, only show me the things that don't have a BSR, but have a 10% increase in reviews over the past 90 days, or have a 50 plus sales tag on them, but no sales rank. So it depends.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'll just put, I use current minimum of 3 sellers, and that's essentially just trying to filter out private label items. And that's the extent of how far I drill into offer count.
Luke, wholesale suppliers can be hard for Amazon to vet because they're more hidden, right? A lot of times, yeah. They may not Bob's supply house down the street from me that works out of a flex space and has legitimate contracts with, some, I don't know, let's say Milwaukee, or for those of you who don't know what Milwaukee is, it's a tool brand, the wrong one. But have that contract. They have no idea who Bob is, out of this flex space down the road from me. And he doesn't have a website, or it's a website that looks like a Lycos web page from 1998. And so they're like, we're not taking this serious. So yeah, it can absolutely be more difficult. Michael, on a fast moving ASIN you are familiar with, e.g., you've replenished it 3 to 4 times, how deep do you recommend buying maximum when you know that ASIN well? Is 50 too many? No, 50 is not necessarily too many. I guess it would depend on how quickly I was selling through the items that I purchased before. So let's say before the maximum I ever bought was 20. If I'm selling 20 in a week, then I'm probably going to go and test 80 units, especially if this is the 5th time that I'm buying, because now I should have 30 days of supply. Okay. That I can send in. But then you may still be under buying, and you're going to learn that on this larger restock. Okay. Because if you send in 80 units rather than the 20 that you've sent in 3 different times, you're going to have a more distributed inventory and more buy boxes, most likely around the country. So you may actually find that, oh man, I did the tests of 20 3 different times. This time I send in 80, as long as it's not more than like 2 to 3% of your total available capital. That would be the other caveat, in my opinion. But now you're like, oh, you know what? These 80, they actually sold through in 2 weeks because I have a larger distribution. And so then you got to go back again and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I just start sending in 100 each time, and I try to replenish this once every 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks. So, and it'll change seasonally too. It may not be a seasonal product, but you're probably going to sell more in Q4 than you sell at the tail end of Q1, no matter what the product is. Deal Hunter, what is the best method to save receipts digitally? Gmail. It's fantastic. Now, if you're talking about physical receipts, there are a lot of different ways to do it. And I'm getting ready to test out something that seems incredibly promising called Spark Receipt. Spark Receipt looks really cool. You can upload from your phone. It'll grab receipts out of your email, and it uses AI to put them together. And it's like $6 a month. And I do need to reach out. I need to reach out to them because it is limited. I think at that $6 a month, you're limited to 100 documents per month. At $8.25 a month, you're limited to 500 documents per month, and they'll also do 400 bank statement extractions. And then they do line item categorization for you. They do all kinds of stuff. But I want to reach out to them and be like, hey, you know what? What do you do for people who are like really, really big? And maybe have 1,000 receipts every single month. Yeah, it is Spark Receipt. I'll drop a link here in the chat. This is an affiliate link. It's not my affiliate link. But yeah, that this looks really promising, really cool, and it's cheap. So it's not safe to assume past offer count and price movement will repeat. So price normally comes back to what the market will bear. If the number of sellers goes down or the supply goes back to baseline. Yes. That's economics 101. If supply goes down and demand stays the same, the price must go up to whatever the market will bear. Okay. And if supply goes up and demand stays the same, well, the price must come down. There's always an inverse correlation between those things. So should it repeat? Yes. However, to say that it does that every single time, in like a perfect pattern, that takes away market forces that we can't predict, For example, let's say, so what is going to happen tomorrow when everyone finally figures out, when all the normies wake up and are watching Good Morning America and they all find out that the Fed cut the rate again? And does that mean that they're going to feel a little bit better about the future of the economy and they're going to want to go out and spend more? Maybe, but maybe not. If the rate, let's say the Fed increases the rate again or increases the rate in December, does that, like, we can't take into account things that we don't know will happen. Deal Hunter, correct me if I'm wrong. TJ Maxx and Ross do not accept reseller tax exemption. Do you know which stores do, or if you have a list of them? I don't have a list. TJ Maxx, I don't believe cares to do it, although I've had some do it. Bat these baby blues, man, and you can just you can get your way quite a bit. Ross will usually take reseller tax exemption. Never thought about distribution having a positive effect on sales. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we made it to the end, guys. We should probably, 90 minutes is probably, you probably had enough of us today. But we'll be back on Sunday to do this all over again with you guys at 5:30 p.m. We'd love to have you back out and hang out with us a little bit. Until Sunday, I hope you guys kick some ass and take some names. All right. Have a great one.